Welcome back to the Swarm News Podcast. I'm Joshua Hill with my co-host.
And I'm Vincent Lewis, co-host of Swarm News, and we're excited to dive into the fast-evolving field of small uncrewed aircraft systems, or SUAS for most people know, and how adversaries are leveraging them and how the blue side is countering them, and what we need to know for going forward with these changes. And with that being said, before anything, can you please like, subscribe, and follow? It helps us with the algorithm to get us more views and to get what we're knowing and saying out to people to want to learn and know more. So that being said, back to you, Josh.
Yeah, so today what we're going to do is we're going to cover three main sections. What SUAS, Counter-sUAS looks like today and where they're going. How key adversaries are employing SUAS in actual conflicts, and then how that informs what we should expect. What the third one's going to be what that actually means for U.S. SUAS industry, defense contractors, especially the small to medium like our company. Our local state governments in places like Ohio and other states want to do to stay ahead of the curve. So let's go ahead and jump on in. So we're going to start by setting the baseline. What do we mean by SUAS and what's the driving trend? For small tactical drones to larger systems, even swarms, the cost curve is dropping. The autonomy is increasing, which means that the barrier to entry for adversaries is getting easier and getting lower. Vincent, you want to hit what we're seeing in the hardware and the capability spaces?
Sure. So one of the things that we're seeing a lot of is that the more common off-the-shelf type sensors are starting to become more of a commonplace for even battlefield type drones. So you got like FPV drones or something like this, the frame, small drones using off-the-shelf sensors such as like a millimeter wave sensor, something like this tiny sensor that can see through a wall, and being able to apply that to, say, something this small, being able to be put on something this big, to be able to just realize, hey, I can see through it. And different software changes, such as like where you're seeing the Jetson Nanos being added to another aircraft to be able to say it can now recognize and use the AI versions of, or AI to recognize people, things such as cars, trucks, buildings, and make its own decision making. A lot of these things are starting to get to a place to where it used to be big contractors like Northrop and AeroVironment, places like that, having large budgets. Now we don't have to really see them with a whole lot of money now, because you got places like Al Qaeda and small other areas, small little adversary units that can take something such as this, like a small flight controller, a small drone, these sensors, and put them all together and make it something that's deadly. We're seeing that in Ukraine right now. They're turning these FPV drones into something that's more deadly and more cost effective. They're spending $1,500 to $500 a drone to carry a munition to hit a tank. So we're seeing a lot of these major changes that are impacting the industry. There's been millions of dollars type equipment that's not needed anymore. And then when you talk about areas like even swarming is becoming even more easier set situation where you don't have to have a big industry or a big company to actually make something that's a swarm. It's helpful because when it comes down to production, but right now you can literally just do that more so in your homegrown house, just if you have the knowledge and the right assets to do it. And yeah, so what do you think, Josh?
Well, so I mean, let's ground this, right? So suppose a mid-sized defense contractor, or I don't know, a local government in Ohio, wants to invest in understanding UAS threats. It's not just the drone flying overhead; it's the enabling ecosystem that's huge. I mean, the communications, anatomy of the sensors, the logistics. I mean, this just means opportunities and risks for small players. Before we move into adversary use, anything you want to add on trends that we're seeing, Vince?
I think the biggest trend, like I was saying, is you're starting to see the cost effectiveness of it starting to drop. You see the place where it used to take tens of thousands of dollars, like millions of dollars for a drone to get put up. You take like a Predator or something like that, that costs a couple $1,000,000 to build and get set and to be put into use. And then having trained operators where now you can literally reduce that cost by thousands of dollars. And it's still taking, say, a Patriot missile that cost over $2 million each to actually take down something that costs even a quarter of its own cost. Like you have the Shaheed, which is well more known and was been used in battle spaces, especially in Ukraine, Russia conflict. That it doesn't cost them that much, $20,000 for that aircraft, and then a missile that costs $2 million. You can see the lopsidedness in that situation already, and how that literally is costing way more money for the defender than it is for the adversary who's actually trying to use it to get their point across, to take out an asset or take out people or whatever it is that they wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that. I mean, when we're talking about adversary drones, UAS, such as the Shaheed drone that you've already mentioned, comes to mind. It's, I mean, Iran designed originally, but Russia has adapted it and is using it for a mass deployment right now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I was saying, it costs $20,000 to $50,000 each to make one. They can adjust those aircraft to be whatever their needs need to be. Modifying it, you're seeing a lot of modification from other countries to do something similar. You know, even for us, we see our own country kind of adopting that type of a mindset of, you know, this is a good frame. It may not be the best thing, but it's like one of those things that's already a proven commodity, I guess you can say, something that will meet the needs and do the job. May not do everything, but because of the cost being so much lower and so much more effective, you can pretty much put those in place. And these other countries are realizing that, and they're using it, and they're putting it to use in a way that is never seen before. So we're seeing a major change in the industry, which was going to happen. I have a feeling, like, just seeing from the past, it was something that was an inevitable thing. Drones being like another industry of aviation that's changing, you know, thus forcing defenders into a bad cost exchange ratio, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, I get where you're coming from. It makes sense. So let's dig into some of the technical employment then. You have reconnaissance, you have target designations, you have loitering munitions. For an example, Russia Orlan 10 is used for reconnaissance and EW, or electronic warfare, for those that don't know that. One drone relays imagery, another one does all the jamming, another one does transmits all the data back and forth. I mean, that's just the way that's one hell of a modular system that's being used, and it's very intrusive. Russia's also got a tactics drone for saturation, launches hundreds of thousands to overall defenses, not necessarily to hit every target, but just to exhaust the enemy or open up gaps so that they can send in other vehicles that they wish to use to attack. I mean, this is the way of the future. It's looking like. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with them putting those into place, you know, the massive waves of drones, you know, you can see how that's a big difference. Like when you saw the same thing, the Israel Iran conflict, where Iran sent thousands of drones and it put their Iron Dome into a flux of having to be able to take those out, and it took multiple assets to literally knock all those aircraft out of the air. And that's a major inundation in their air defense system. So it's making two changes in the world of where we see as air defense, where it used to be from where I came from. You're looking for another airplane coming in to take out other systems or other ballistic missiles. It's not just a ballistic missile now. It's more of these smaller systems being able to be in it. And then you're seeing such like Houthis on the coast and the Strait trying to literally Hormone Strait, taking out and making logistics on that area can conflict it to a place to where now we're in a place to have to worry about if some small entity can literally just cause issues that causes thousands to millions of dollars of asset problems. And that also comes into another problem that we see is logistics with it, because these small aircraft and these systems take a lot of problems or take a lot of things to be built. You know, one of the things that you see for Russia is that their domestic industry isn't truly built for this, because it's another realm of life for them, of like how their normal military industry is set up. So they're having to get support from other countries, you know, mainly seeing from maybe China via them giving them support, you know, doing things that are getting things from other places, whether it be from the different areas, different places, different locations, different companies, to be what they need. So we're, I think, kind of coming into that same aspect with US. The supply chain here will be an interesting thing to see with how we have to handle building or come into a place where we need to build aircraft, and can we have the supply chain that's necessity or the necessities of meeting what we need in organic to our own country. So I think that'll be the next point that we really will start to make emphasis on for us, because that opens up a lot of doors. When you really think about it, Josh, there's so many things that can be made here that we don't already have. And I think that's the next part that really needs to be done, is bring a emphasis to making that stuff in our own country and not bringing it from overseas, from other places. We do it our own in-house. And kind of going back to what it was like when World War II happened, you had everything being made here and we're exporting it and become the main primary exporters.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good to me. I agree with what you're saying there. We really need to bring this back home and start creating it and developing our own, so we're not relying on outside resources. But before we switch over to talking about China, I want to highlight the takeaway for Ohio and local government. I mean, this means Homeland Security partners need to think about low-cost drones, not just luxury UAV threats, but like a small actor with commercial off-the-shelf tools being able to generate operational effects. I'm sorry. Um, we need to make things that are scalable, modular, cost-effective counter-UAS solutions that are required for not just us nationally, but also like here locally. So let's go ahead and shift over to the China perspective.
Yeah, and to be honest, on their perspective from them, they have the industry that's really there. They started, when you look at DJI, DJI is the leading UAS company in the world, period. Their process of how they make them, their ease of use, the aircraft themselves are very robust and resilient. I mean, you have companies like Skydio and some other companies here that are making that, but don't have that same market share as what you see out of DJI, out of a company like that that produces a mass amount for just the public use, and how they're being pushed into the markets. And now there such of a big of a change in the market that it's also come the opposite. Now the government, US government, is pushing it to where we can't use those, or saying, hey, these aren't going to be allowed to be in here. So now it's changing the industry within the country also, because it's like, what's going to replace it?
Yeah.
What are we going to do to put in something that can actually do the same jobs as what those DJI drones were, and at the same time be as good as those DJI drones? You know, that's something coming from that industry where we have some aircraft that are good. Like I said, Skydio, we have some others, but the cost effectiveness of it is going to be the issue also. Are they going to be able to meet that cost at a cheaper rate as what DJI was? Because as we know, things cost a lot more in the US for a reason to make. We have a lot of things that go into it. So that's going to be a big key.
Okay. So, from a report from CNA, China's military writings indicate a push toward drone swarms, autonomous UAS, and integrating UAS into amphibious or even maritime operations, especially when they're dealing with Taiwan. So the PLA views UAS not as a niche anymore, but now as the core future warfare. How do you feel about that? Do you think that that's kind of where all the major threats and all the major players are going to be headed?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that insight of knowing that those are the routes, it saves lives. When you look at like some of these systems like Loyal Wingman, which is another part of a specific drone a type of drone that can be used to support our fighters and push out in front, and the way that they're being used to basically be the front line reconnaissance, one, two, sensing methods of basically understanding what's around so that before it even gets to the fighter itself can be recognized. And just in general, like, the drones can be lifesavers. You can put those out there like you see in Ukraine and Russia. Like, they're using these drones to take out tanks before they can get to their other forces. They're using them to take out defended positions, taking out like Woodline. Was it the Dragon UAS that actually sets fire to the Woodline with phosphorus? So we're seeing a change that is a new precedence to what war fightings typically look like. And when you look at the same thing on our side for, first responders, people being able to take a drone such as a DJI aircraft and put it up to see if they can find a person that's in the woods that is lost, or to find what's getting on situations, like they can react to calls. I was looking at a video today where police department is using the drone to go to calls quickly. They can get up and go see what's going on. So when you take things like what China's seeing and saying, hey, these are game changers, we're going to put them in use now. It's just like how helicopters were in Vietnam. They were first change in what was being seen as a necessity. And just like the machine gun was in World War One, game changer there, to the airplane, to the tank. We saw the major change, especially being on that side of it during the Iraq, Afghanistan wars, seeing how a drone could make a big difference as a force multiplier to the combatant commanders on the ground.
Yeah. So with everything we've just been discussing and putting it all together, Russia is showing us the volume, attrition-based drone use, cheap drones, lots of them, and just throw as many of them as you can at your enemy. Where China's showing us autonomy, swarm capabilities, enabling roles to supply chains. So both of these are kind of feeding into where the UAS is going globally. Let's talk about some like implications for the U.S. industry. Maybe even specifically here for veterans in the Ohio local state governments. Now bringing this back home, I mean, you're listening in on the defense contracting spaces, veterans transitioning, and local offices in Ohio. Let's break it into three buckets, right? So we got defense contractors and small businesses. The adversary model shows the importance of rapid production with modular systems, supply chain resilience, cost effectiveness, right? Like companies like ours can be different and can differentiate by offering counter UAS swarm detection and low cost mitigation. The veteran community, I mean, if you've got signals and an ISR background, like many of us, like myself included, UAS operations are a growth area. This is somewhere maybe some of these guys should be looking at and like getting involved in. And then the government, like our local place, like Homeland Security, we should be looking at some of this type of stuff for infrastructure protection, our ports, power grids, civilian events. We need to consider this. It's good low cost UAS threat protection. Like we can actually see more and protect more with these kind of things. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that one of the major changes that we saw was when you started to see the random identified identified drones on the air bases, and you're starting to see and hear about those getting there, and then having detections and finding ways to find out what those are doing and understanding how they're being used. So right now in the counter UAS space, you have people who are employing systems. You have a lot of companies that have systems, but what's making it harder, I think, is that a lot of these drones don't have to have signals being put out. How do you mitigate a drone that's not putting out its location? It doesn't have anything that's being talked back to immediately to say, hey, I am going here and I need a confirmation from something on the ground telling me that this is what I need to do next. And then even when you get to the place of imagine, okay, you mitigate those signals from being there, and then it still says, okay, my flight controller is using a camera or LiDAR or some other sensor to recognize things on the ground, and it can still complete its mission by doing that. The only other means is kinetic, but even then it's like, okay, I can still work just as fast. You're trying to connect with a missile or like something moving is like the same speed, not at the same speed, but close to the same speed as like a bullet. It's moving fast, 100 miles an hour, going to where it needs, is recognizing what it needs to do and getting to it and doing it. So I think that's a change, not only for the aspect of a military perspective. When you look at it on the first responder side, the same thing. People taking these drones up, say deciding to use it to recon an area and seeing who or when the police are coming, and knowing that they're there, and knowing that, oh, I know I need to get out of here. Bad guys side, cops and robbers. That's another one. What I'm saying? That aspect of it is going to be another change that we will need to see outside of just the wars that are being fought other places. You get people who are smart and starting to put them into place, and how do you defend against it? What are we going to do to make that use? And then the everyday person not having to be concerned with it also. How do a hobbyist that I'm just using my drone just to go fly, do what I want to do for my own needs, get not wrapped up in that situation also. So those are all aspects that I think are really need to be understood. I think some states like Ohio, one of the things we recognize is they have a drone center of excellence. So they're already trying to forward front thinking that way through. On top of with companies like Anduril coming into the state, it starts to bring in, a little bit more insight that's not just your norm. So we'll see a big change in that change of perspective and mindsets. It's just going to take some time, unfortunately. But as things go, when you get tech, just like look at AI. This AI bug is like clicking like that, and it's moving faster. It started, I remember seeing 2 years ago when it was coming out, and now it's changing to go even faster. Every couple months, it was like every 3 months you see a change. Now it's like almost feels like every week. Yeah. So the drone counter UAS side will grow, but we'll have to keep watching. This where we'll be able to give you insight on those new changes that are happening and seeing what'll happen. What's your thoughts?
No, I agree with you. I mean, from all the things that I've seen, the things that I've like dreamed up in my own head of what possibilities could be. I mean, it's scary out there. Like what our adversaries could use it for. I mean, they're getting braver and more adventurous with their uses for them every day. So I mean, it's almost to a point of if you can dream it, you can make it happen with these things, and I think that's scary.
I agree.
So I guess what's next for UAS domain? Like a few forward-looking points. Like I mean, autonomy and swarm mass. I think that's going to be the next. I honestly have been thinking for a while. That's the next big push is like,
Agree.
how do we make that? And I believe that this is going to be China's biggest push. I mean, they're the ones that are really into the making everything talk with AI and work itself. And you just give it a location and like say, go do, and it just, again, they're communicating between each other, but there's no other way to like see what's going on. And then integration with multi-domain operations, like, is it going to become a thing where like you have drones on the ground, drones in the air, and drones in the sea all talking to each other and creating and doing missions? And then how do we stop that? And like, what's the key growth area for counter UAS? Like, how do we combat some of this? I think, do we have the right people in the right places talking about it? Are people even talking about these kinds of things? And then I think supply chain vulnerabilities for our adversaries is going to be like, are there constraints? Are we going to be able to like stop some of the mass production that they're trying to do? I mean, what are your final thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that we'll see is the networking. When you look at, say, the fireworks type drones, the ones that are replacing fireworks, the networks of how many of those can be put up at one time. You know, thinking about most times, most people only think of blockchains in regards to cryptocurrency, but those blockchains technically could be another use for a drone to communicate, which then you can identify if a system is actually a part of it. And it makes it very hard to knock that aircraft off of a blockchain, because it's like, or to add something to it. So when you look at the autonomy of things going forward, it's already key infrastructure that's there. It's just getting the people to have an imagination to think through further than just, hey, this is the ones and zeros of it. Yep. And that's going to be the biggest key, because that's now, okay, we can start to see you have basic changes where it would be a aircraft that's being hit by a RF signal that's being able to knock it out. But then what happens when RF signals aren't the problem and you have like a big area where you have like a 5G network that's now needing to be negated? You're going to negate the whole network, or are you going to, negate just that one system? And how do you negate the one system when the whole network's connected to the main thing that you have your cell phones on and you have other infrastructure connected to? So we have a lot of thoughts that, things that as a country need to think about, and then how that infrastructure is being utilized in other countries and other places, and seeing what we need to do to move forward to actually be forward thinking of that, and in a place to where we now take away that opportunity to not have it as a problem that we can't solve, but we already have the solution before the problem's there.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is great. I think this is the information that we want to get out to our listeners, right? Like, so for our listeners, as we're wrapping up with this, we encourage you to act. I mean, if you're a veteran exploring new tech domains, reach out, get your feet wet in the UAS or counter UAS. If you're a small business in Ohio, think of how you can build modular unmanned counter unmanned capabilities. If you're local state officials, start assessing not just the big threats, but like the low cost unmanned threats. And let's build partnerships with local industry and our veterans. Our next episode, we will be talking about how we started our business and like getting into what's the ins and outs and how difficult it actually is to start a drone business, especially as a small startup. Thanks for joining Vince and I today. I'm Josh.
I'm Vincent Lewis. And if you have any questions, concerns, make sure you head them up in the comments. And thank you for checking us out. Hope to see you again next time on the next show of the Swarm News channel.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all's support. Thanks, guys.